And coming up with the last fight on the prelims, we've got Tabatha Ricci, Baby Shark versus Lupita Godinez. And apologies if this ends up not being the main event of the prelims, but they've been switching around the fights a little bit because of that late ad with Roosevelt Roberts. So it's been changing around different places, but either way, this is towards the end of the prelims. And should be a fantastic fight between two fighters with very similar styles. We've had a lot of clash of styles in some instances in this card, or some specialists. And both of these are definitely specialists, but in the same areas. So Tabatha Ricci, 4-1 now in the UFC, and has had an incredible slew of opponents. Debuting against Manon Fiorot, one of my favorite fighters in the UFC women's classes. And she lost to her via knockout, which shit happens. When facing Fiorot, shit happens. But she then proceeded to beat Maria Oliveira, Poliana Viana, Jessica Penne, and then Gillian Robertson pretty decidedly in her last fight as well. Though I'll touch on that in a little bit. Wasn't as impressive as I was hoping that she would be on the feet against Gillian, but still an impressive record nonetheless. And Lupita Godinez has had quite the up and down UFC career, but last beating Elise Reed via rear naked choke, which if you can have any sort of grappling against Elise Reed, you'll have a lot of success, because boy, can she strike, but boy, she cannot grapple in the slightest. But what this fight comes down to for me is going to be the slight edges that I have Godinez in on the feet, but also on the mat. And what I mean by that is the aggression and strength of Godinez in the grappling, but also on the feet, I think will edge her as far as damage goes throughout the fight. Ricci throws with more volume, but a lot doesn't connect. A lot is just like faint jabs that never land, but she's just throwing them to get action out there. And so you really it's hard to decide as far as damage goes with Ricci in that regard. It's continuing to improve, but it's still pretty basic. And she really struggles to find range, especially as the smaller fighter, which she will be in this fight, although it's not by much. What Ricci does have the slight edge in this fight for me is in those transitions, in the grappling transitions. So if we end up going to the mat with both of these ladies being BJJ experts, I do lean Ricci a little bit in being able to scramble and find the back, or be able to get into an advantageous position over Godinez. But it's not a large enough advantage for me to take her in the fight. And so I guess that sort of spoils where I am in the fight. But Andy, I'll hand it over to you to see what your thoughts are on this fight, because I think it's a pretty close one. It's an interesting one.
It's a tough one for me because I am a Ricci fan, but I do really respect Lupi's game. I think too, like Lupi has several of her teammates there for what it's worth, where she comes from that Lobo Gym MMA, where she's going to have Alessandro Costa as well as Diego Lopez there with her training. So will be a busy night for that gym. I think with Ricci's spectacular Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that she also is training with some of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, I just tend to give that a slight edge over the wrestling grappling that Godinez has, where I do lean Ricci here, even though I probably am going to sit out on this one. It's interesting. Like, you could take both of them to win by decision. So Godinez by decision plus 115, and then Ricci by decision plus 150, and you're netting profit if you think that it goes to decision. However, that would mean that if it doesn't go to decision, you're out 2 units. So I wouldn't recommend doing something like that because the fight to go the distance is also at minus 350. So it's like it's a tough avenue there where Rick's doing the math in his head there. He's thinking about it. I don't have a play on this one besides that I think it's going to go to decision. Both of these girls are not going to go out. I think that they both have the longevity and they're going to be kind of playing a chess match where they're not going to get the finish, but the odds say that, and it makes it kind of difficult to bet.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like I don't have a bet on this fight either. It's one of the few that I don't, because I lean Godinez, but at minus 175 for a lean, you're never going to lock it in. And I'm always apprehensive already just to lock in a minus 170 in general. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I think that the power of Godinez is going to be the difference in this fight as far as damage and winning rounds and points goes. We could end up getting a split decision here very, very easily. So if you want to bet either by split decision, I know we locked in Diakise by split decision last week, which did it hit? We hit one or two,
but it was close.
It did not, but I did hit 1 plus 700 one. I'm blinking on who it was last week, who won by split decision. Maybe Ben can get that up between fights here. But yeah, I lean the power for her. She's dropped numerous opponents throughout her career now. Loopy has. And those takedowns and that BJJ, I just think that she has enough avenues to win this fight and slight advantages to where I'll lean Lupita Godinez. So neither of us have a bet on this fight, but we are going different ways as far as who goes to win. So maybe there's some value on Ricci for you guys out there. But I've got Godinez, Andy's got Ricci, and we will see you back here for Steve Urseg and Alessandro Costa. And to add one more thing to that segment real quick, to confirm, it was Mark Jacasey by split decision plus 700 that was able to hit last week. Angela Hill was damn close to getting that as well at plus 500, but we take it anyways.